In this video, beast herds will battle Sylvan Elves. I'm Alex and you're watching Winterwolf Miniatures. That's my coffee. Welcome back to my channel and another 9th Age Fantasy battle report. In this game I will battle Rickard and his Sylvan Elves. That's fun because it was a long time ago since he was a guest on my channel. We are usually pretty close and have a pretty equal amount of wins against each other. He won against me in a tournament back in January, and I won our last encounter after that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens today. He arrived today with this list: a scary avatar of nature, the unkillable Thicket shepherd, a Dryad ancient, and 2 druids. Some small trees, some medium trees, led by a big tree. As usual. The trees are accompanied by 2 handful of elves. The wild Huntsmen and Kestrel knights are probably going to be the most troublesome. And of course, as always when I'm fighting Sylvan Elves, don't fight the Thicket beasts. I have this list today, and it's pretty much the same as I've been sporting for a while. Lots of drops and about half the army will ambush. My tactics? It's difficult to say. Depends a lot about the secondary we get and how he deploys his army, of course. I guess I will have to try ambush and kill stuff with my throwing, getting a couple of wounds on the wild huntsmen with throwing weapons before they manage to charge something would be very good. The archers are dangerous up close, and getting a hold of them won't be easy with the huntsmen running around. And somehow I have to try to kill the Dryads because there is a lot of points there, without getting caught by the Thicket beast, that is. We rolled for deployment and secondary, and got counter thrust and hold the ground. That's good for him in my mind, because he can simply walk up there and claim that with the Thicket beasts, and I won't be able to do much about that until I cleared most of the other things, and by then it will probably be too late. We'll see. We show spells. This photo sucks, but I have both Awaken the Beast and Perception of Strength, which might be a problem. I have these spells: Break the Spirit, Totemic Summon, Awaken the Beast, and Echoes of the Dark Forest. He deployed first, and after we each deployed 3 units, he deployed the rest of his army, wanting first turn. He vanguard his Kestrel knights up on the right flank, and the giant runs up the left flank. Elves turn 1. Most of the army moves up, but before the magic phase there was an ambush. Not the beasts. No, it was a wild Daniel that appeared. When I was busy photographing and talking to him, Rickard cunningly casted Ice and Fire on my giant, making a couple of wounds. I was then ready to, and successfully dispelled his next spell, whatever that was. The first bunch of archers killed 2 raiders. The next bunch made 2 wounds on my Wabab. Let's not do that again. Let's just call him Gary. The next bunch of archers made 2 wounds on Gary. The third bunch of archers made some wounds on the giant, taking him down to 3 health points. I do not remember how many wounds the shooting and the spell did respectively, but the total is 4. Beasts turn 1. Everything managed to pass the ambush test this game, so everything will be arriving. Some wild horns here, centaurs here, longhorns here, and wildhorns there. Some briar beasts popped up as well in various places. He's done well to protect himself against them though. I first thought I shouldn't deploy them yet because the limitations on good places, but I have promised myself to do so, since I've always needed them earlier when I've held them back, and they do add some more chaos in the opponent's mind. Oh, yeah. And some raiders appeared in front of the giant. The wolves run up to be annoying and in the way for the Dryads. The raiders moved as long as they could after failing their march test. They couldn't get out of the Kestrel's line of sight, but the overrun angle will at least be awkward. My petition to add yet another creature to the board was denied. And that is pretty much how interesting that magic phase was. The wild horns and centaurs only managed to kill 2 wild huntsmen. The Cyclops, however, made quite a hole in the middle of the Dryads, and the Beast Lord made 2 wounds on the enemy general, with Hawthorne's Curse. And this is how the board looks at this point. As a fairly new Beast Herd player, I can assure you that it is just as hard for me as it is for you and my opponent to keep track of everything and all units' line of sights, potential viable charges and shooting ranges, and something else I realized in Elves turn 2. The wild huntsman wanted to charge the giant. I pointed out that it should be the center 3 riders remaining, and we remedied that. When we then measured, we found they couldn't, because they would touch the edge of the board before coming close to the giant. He then charged the raiders instead and joined with his archers. I was fine with this, because if the archers didn't overrun humongously far, they would be caught the next turn by either the wild horns over here, the centaurs, or the wild horns over here. More devastatingly was that he found out he could charge my briar beasts with these guys. I thought I was safe there in between his units, but he could get his huntsmen in there with many millimeters to spare. And his thicket beasts charged my wolves, and the Kestrel knights charged the raiders. His Dryads reformed and ended up facing my deployment zone. Magic is next, and here is where it becomes interesting, for real. He spotted my briar beast over here and threw Fate's Judgment on it. This is one of my biggest weaknesses right now as a Undead and Warrior of the Dark Gods player. I don't remember the panic aura, because I'm used to everything being fearless. Well, my general isn't, and I had to do some quick math in my head. I decided that while the chances of the briar beast dying was big, the chances of my general failing its discipline 9 roll was not. So I made, I think, the right call and let the spell go. Well, in this case it turned out to be the wrong decision, because the briar beast died and the beast lord fled off the board. And that's 805 points to the elves. I dispelled something, but he got no die enemy off on his general and a strength buff on the huntsman. His general shot his wine things and killed one centaur, and his archers up in the right corner killed some wildhorn. The huntsmen and archers smashed the raiders to bits, and the huntsman overran into the giant. On the right flank, I believe the kestrels did the same thing. The thicket beasts smashed through the wolves, and these huntsmen smashed through the first briar beast and overrun into the next one. Beasts turn 2. The wild horns charged the archers from behind, but the impressive roll of 6 in total meant that was unsuccessful. The other wild horns charged the archers over here, who, although look like they are facing the wrong way, is actually facing them. The centaurs charged the eagle. They are placed backwards here just because the tree on the eagle base was in the way. The longhorns reformed and stood uncomfortably close to the tree. The wildhorns moved in position to throw stuff on the archers. Magic was pretty uneventful. I believe I got a totem off on the longhorns, but that's pretty much it. The wildhorns killed 3 elves with their throwing, and then the other wildhorns chased off the archers in the top right. They fled to here, and the wildhorns overrun into the huntsmen, where they got their butt handed to them, and were themselves chased away. The giant died. Yeah, it goes super right now. Elves turn 3. The archers charged the fleeing wildhorns, who left. The huntsmen charged the wildhorns, but the general feared the oncoming centaurs for some reason and didn't charge anything. I believe the plan was to try to shoot them down with the archers or the general himself if they was not successful. But I'm not sure why he placed the general here and didn't leave the longhorns line of sight. The Kestrel Knights moves in from the right. He once again buffs the strength of the wild huntsman, and then he shoots the centaurs down. He killed a lot of wildhorns, and they managed to kill 1 rider. At 7 left against 2, the wildhorns are steadfast and stuck around. Beasts turn 3. The wildhorns once again tried to charge the archers, but they fled. 2 died from running through the other wildhorns, and the charges got nowhere. But the longhorns charged the big tree in the side. I got Blooded Horn totem out on the longhorns for extra strength and AP, and Gnawed Hide on the wildhorns for distracting. After this round of combat, we're down to 3 wildhorns against 1 wild huntsman. The longhorns, of course, won the combat, but the tree is stubborn. Once in a while, though, the universe restores some balance immediately, and he fails the discipline test. The tree flees and is run down by the longhorns. Hallelujah! A celebratory selfie is in order. Rickard is not happy. Elves turn 4. He charges the longhorns with the huntsman up here and rallies his archers. Both of them. The Dryads moves up and the Kestrels move closer. The Thicket beasts get in position to either help the Huntsmen or take a charge from the Longhorns should the raiders break, as well as help the Dryads if the Longhorns get loose and charge them. He once again buffs the strength of the Huntsmen, but I dispel the rest of his shenanigans. The archers shoot at Gary, but it does nothing. In this very long combat, it's down to the very last man, a beast or elf. Well, the last one standing was a beast. Who would have thought? In this fight, I killed 2 Huntsmen. Wanna guess how many they killed? Go ahead, guess. Let me know in the comments what your guess is right now. And while down there, like the video as well. This is the paired weapons Huntsmen, and they have perception of strength active. Okay, have you made your guess? Ready? 11. They killed 11 Longhorns. Bodyguard and BSB, so I passed my break test and turned around. Beast turn 4. The Sorcerer, Cyclops and Gary all charged the Dryads. Gary and the Sorcerer made it, but the Cyclops failed. The Cyclops needed an 8, but got a 7. Awaken the Beast for toughness on the Longhorns, because staying alive is now the name of the game. And the next turn that would be challenging due to high risk of Thicket beasts. Even with that out, he managed to kill 5 Longhorns before the last Huntsmen were destroyed. In the other fight, Gary and the Sorcerer were faring pretty well against the Dryads. They won the fight, and even though the Dryads were steadfast, and he had reroll from the BSB, they failed their break test and was run down. You should not underestimate the aura of madness from Gary. He might be mad, but he makes you crazy as well. Things are looking up somewhat, but at this point he has already claimed the secondary objective. I can't recover since he has already 3 points and it's just 2 rounds left. But let's see what happens in Elves turn 5. The Thicket Beast charged the Sorcerer together with the Kestrel Knights, and the archers up to the left moves into super short range. He casts Perception of Strength yet again, this time on the Thicket Beasts. And then the last surviving Wildhorn, who last turn threw some stuff without any results on the archers, was executed for this misdemeanor. I asked Rickard how he felt about finally killing it, and he said he felt like this. These guys shoot at the Longhorns and killed 2. The Sorcerer didn't take any wounds but still lost the fight. He needed a 3 to stay around but rolled a 4 on the second try. He was really afraid though and ran away 11 inches. With that roll none of his chasers caught him, but they did catch Gary. Beasts turn 5. The Cyclops charged the Kestrels. This time it's successful, and the Longhorns charge the Thicket Beasts. The Sorcerer rallies, and I got Awaken the Beast for toughness on Gary, as he would get the most attacks on him. And also I needed him to survive, so it would all be treated as one combat. And I believe I also got Gnarled Hide or Blooded Horn on the Longhorns. And of course, Break the Spirit on the Thicket Beasts. 2 flags and a flank charge by a monster is really something. And if I can somehow manage to win the combat, his break test will be with -1 on the Thicket Beasts and minus at least 2 on the Kestrels. Well, it didn't because this fight ended in a draw. But I'm happy to inform you that Gary survived. Elves turn 6. He gets Savage Fury and Awaken the Beast out on his Thicket Beasts. All the archers shoot at my Sorcerer from different directions and make 1 wound. Then he kills all the remaining Longhorns and chase off Gary. The Sorcerer passed its panic test, but the Wildhorns failed theirs. Twice. Banner of Discipline is not super effective when you have Discipline 7 after all. Beasts turn 6. The Sorcerer charges the archers up top, who flee. So he redirects into the Thicket Beasts. I'm not likely to win that, but he is probably not dying and the impact might kill a 3 or 2. I need the points, so why not try? I wouldn't if this was a competitive game, but it's not. So why not? To Rickard's annoyance, Gary rallied with a roll of 3. The Wildhorns did not, but stayed on the board. Barely. Awakened the Beast on myself with a beautiful roll of 14, which meant the Sorcerer won't be dying. But he didn't kill anything important either, and that's where the game ends. Before I tell you the final score, I want to thank you so much for watching, and please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I got 2,756 points, but the Elves got a whopping 3,695 points, plus the secondary objective, which means 16 against 4 to the elves. Congratulations, Rickard. That's it from me this time. Have a good one, and I see you soon.